This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about our highlights and lowlights of the latest Nintendo Direct, the PlayStation 6 having 59 level ray tracing, Randy Pitchford's Borderlands 4 stupidity, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 102. I am your host, the man who now requires a 1000 watt power supply to function IRL, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who is excited for the upcoming headaches, neck strain, and seizures caused by his day one purchase of the Virtual Boy accessory after he subscribes to Nintendo Switch Online, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Well, it's been things I guess have been winding down to a degree, and that's been somewhat of a good thing, I guess you could say. Yesterday was my last day doing the substitute work I was doing for someone, so she will be coming back next week and picking up, and all in all, I think it wasn't too bad having to do that. I mean, would I necessarily say I would pick it up full time? I don't know, especially considering there are other responsibilities that I already have that I have to do. But I guess in a vacuum, it wasn't too bad. And so if I was asked to fill in again in the future for some reason or another, I would be willing to do that. So, that was a valuable learning opportunity for me. I would definitely say on that end. And I guess also, we have officially hired 2 people to join our crew, so that will definitely help ease a lot of our burden right now, and potentially 2 more people, at least 1 more, maybe 2. It depends on how things go, but that would help a whole lot with things and just all the new work that's coming in. So I'm definitely grateful for that. I'm working on a new, I guess you could say, series and stuff, and new video projects, and I've been trying to get some stuff down, ideas, and I'm going to try working on that. I still, of course, know I said I was working on the Spider-Man video, and that's still in the works. I just have to finish watching the last season and whatnot, but that's that. But yeah, that's essentially, I guess, the big things that have happened to me directly this past week.
All right. Good stuff. All right. I'm going to try not to make this too long. So, first of all, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was, I put together the PC for the church on Saturday, and the process for the most part went super smooth. That the case that we got for the church computer is like nice and big and super easy to do cable management and everything, which was just really, really helpful. And of course it didn't have a GPU in it, so it just made one less thing to plug in, and made it pretty easy to set up. The only hiccup I had was that I made the mistake of not plugging in the SSD to power, and so when I tried to boot up the computer, of course, it didn't recognize the SSD because it wasn't powered. Thankfully, that was, obviously a very easy fix, but the one thing that ended up being annoying on Sunday was that with that motherboard, there's only one HDMI port on it, and the only other option for a video output it had was DVI, and we didn't have a DVI cable. So we couldn't have the signal going out to the TVs at the same time that we also had it going to the monitor. So we just ended up not being able to use it on Sunday. Thankfully, I brought my laptop just in case, which was, good. That just made it super easy. So we just, worked with that. But there's a couple different potential ways in which we could fix that problem. One way would be to just get a DVI cable, which it's very possible amidst all the random cables that my dad left behind. There may be one somewhere in there. I hadn't gotten around to checking. The alternate option would be to actually put a GPU in there, which, we don't want to put anything fancy. There's no reason to, spend a bunch of money on a GPU, since it's not being used for that. I mean, it's just doing PowerPoint. It might occasionally play a video or something, but it's nothing that requires a GPU. But GPU would make it so it has additional outputs, which would make things easier from that standpoint. So while I was kind of going back and forth on this, I decided, maybe I should look into upgrading my GPU if I can find one for a good price. Because if I upgrade mine, then I can put the 2080 Ti in the living room computer, and then I can take the GTX 980 out of the living room computer and put it in the church computer. And then it gets used, and considering the fact that it's not a very powerful card, it will more than suffice for the church, but it doesn't do as much on modern games, at least not like the big twip away kind of things. So first I was looking on eBay, and I was looking at both the 3090 and 7900 XTX, and the 3090, it was like $800, and they were saying or best offer. I was like, okay, that's actually not bad. That's a pretty decent price for a 3090, 24 gigs of VRAM and everything. I mean, yeah, it's a couple gens old, but it's still a solid card, and that's before they went all in on AI and started, making them a lot more expensive for what you get. So I was looking at both of those, but of course I have my source where I normally buy my PC parts from, who's always been reliable, all these years. So I checked with him, said, do you have any 24 gig cards available? Asking first about used ones. He didn't have any used cards, but he had both. I mean, the only two 24 gig cards he had were both new. One was a 7900 XTX. The other one was 5090, which, of course, the 5090 is over $2,000. So it was either that or spend $700 on a 7900 XTX, and it's like, 700's a great price. I will take it. I just said, I'll take it, and so I ordered that, and I should be getting it theoretically before the weekend. I know he said he's not gonna be able to send it out till tomorrow, but he said he's gonna do it as overnight shipping. So theoretically, it should get here, Friday-ish. That's the hope anyway. So because of that, I realized I was going to need to get a new power supply, because the one I have in my computer is 750 watts. It's the one I've had since 2016. It's served me well all this time, but with adding that massive upgrade in graphics card, I mean, it's literally double the power of my 2080 Ti. I did all the math with the using PC part picker, and just even with a couple of things not being added into the total amount, I was hovering right around 700 watts, and it's like, that's cutting it way too close. And so I looked into it and asked around, and I was basically told it's a good idea to have 30% of headroom when it comes to that, and 30% would put me, I think, for 700 watts, that's like 910 watts. So it's over the 850 mark, so 1,000 watt graphics card or power supply is what I need. So I ordered the power supply. Comes overnight. I get it today. And after work, I decide I'm just going to go ahead and get it installed. Maybe use this as an opportunity to clean up my cable management. So initially, one of the first things I found out was that there really wasn't a way to clean up my cable management. That case is not as big. I mean, it's big enough to house a full size motherboard and everything, but it's just cramped enough to where it's just not going to work well um, for doing everything else. And it's also because like the front of the computer is where like the hard drive slots are and everything for hard drives and SSDs and all that, or well, other than NVMe's anyway. And so there's like that whole section where there's not really any place to put cables. And so basically it's still kind of a mess with the cables. But I take out my old power supply, put in the new one. I first realized that the motherboard cable I have in there, because initially I was just planning to stick with the same cables that I already had in there, make it super easy. Uh, it was not quite, it didn't have enough pins on it to work with that. So I'm going through the trouble through these fairly narrow spaces to get cables pulled out so that I can get the new motherboard cable put in, so that I can plug it in, get the motherboard cables plugged in, and I realize as I'm working on the cables, it doesn't have all the same ports as my existing motherboard did.
Huh.
So there are certain things I can't plug into that. And it's just because it's a different style. I think it's just like a newer style with more slim model or slim plugins and that sort of thing. And some of those can be switched out easily enough, like the for like SATA for SSDs and that sort of thing. That one, you can do a different cable. It's not a big deal. But any peripherals like sound card or a DVD-ROM, things like that, which I have both of those on my computer, those require a certain type of PCIe slot, a certain size. And between that and the SATA drives and everything, it's like, okay, I don't have all the plugins I need. And so I basically realized this power supply is not going to work. It wasn't going to work. So I pull it back out after all that effort, and I realized that, I just went ahead and ordered one with the right kind of ports on it. Has all the kinds of ports that I need, a little bit extra, and still 1,000 watts. Ultimately, it's cheaper, which is great. So then I have to reroute my motherboard cable and a couple other cables I took out back through to reconnect everything. And I'm trying to connect my VGA cables, my graphics card cables, into it. And it's not going in. And I'm like, why is this not going in? What's wrong with the cable? Eventually I realized, oh, it's not the same on both sides of the cable. There's one end that has to go into the motherboard, that has to go into the graphics card. And then the other end is the only end that will fit in the power supply. And so once I figured that out, I pulled out the cable, flipped it around, and then it worked. I got it just fine. Got everything put back together. It's all functional. The only thing that I need to double check is I think one of the cables must be just like ever so slightly elevated into the top fan of the case, and so it was like rattling when it was spinning around, so I just need to check it. But considering how long it took me, it was like almost 7 o'clock by the time we actually got dinner, and so I just decided I'm not going to mess with it anymore today. I'll take a look at it tomorrow or whenever I get my new power supply. The plus side is that when I get the new power supply, I was at least able to get things cleaned out enough in there to where even though the cable management still sucks because of how compact it is, at least I won't have to switch out the cables. I think I'll have to add one additional cable for the GPU because it requires more power draw, but it has like a special connector for that. Anyway, so it's not a huge deal, just kind of annoying. If it wasn't for the fact that the case is a perfectly good case otherwise, I would seriously consider getting a new case, but I don't want to go through the hassle of, I mean, you're taking everything out and then rebuilding, even though a newer, bigger case would be really nice from that standpoint, because it would be much easier to manage the cables properly and have it look nice and clean instead of what it looks like right now. So, yeah. I think that's everything. Yeah, that's everything.
Nice. I'm definitely glad that you were able to get everything straightened out, and I'm also glad you were able to get an upgrade, because you've been talking about, waiting to see when you would get a new GPU, and the fact that you were able to get one at a pretty decent price, all things considered, is great. And I mean, that combined with your 9950, I mean, I think you'll have a nice overall performance boost, all things considered. But it's definitely great. I can't wait for everything to be put together. Do you think because of the size, do you think you'll happen to need some kind of GPU bracket, or is there sort of like one provided with the case you have?
I don't think I will. I don't think that one's really any larger necessarily. It should still fit. Of course, if I find out that it's too big, then I guess I'll just have to get a new case after all. But I don't think it should have any issues. Compatibility wise, there wasn't any indication that it should fit just fine in there.
Oh yeah, and I wasn't actually concerned about fitting, but just more so, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to think about here. I mean, I know that it's because is your 2080 Ti a 2-slot or 3-slot GPU?
It's just one slot.
Okay, so then it might be fine, because I just know that the 7900 XTX is like a big beefy card, so I didn't know if it was like something where you would need something to support like it staying in the motherboard without any type of sag going on.
Theoretically, it should be okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it should be, because I mean, it's braced on the end at least, to where it should be. I think it should be fine. And it's stuff's pretty firmly in there, so hopefully. But I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, at least swapping out the GPU is very easy to do. And so if for some reason it's not working properly and I have to do something different, then I can do that, but it should work just fine.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were also able to get everything straightened out with the church computer as well. And I mean, again, you said the case helped a lot, but I just still look at the picture. I'm just thinking, wow, that cable management is just so incredible.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's because it has a ton of space in there to manage the cables. It's like perfection from that standpoint. My case in my PC is nowhere near like that. Mine, I mean, like all the cables are like in one big lump basically, because you have like the front of the computer has the space for the drives, and then you have all the cables kind of massed together, and then you have the motherboard and power supply at the bottom, and it's just like, I hate that. And I thought that at first that it was just like, for some reason it was just really bad cable management. I realized no, it's just the case is not that big. It's not as big as some of these other cases, and that's why it doesn't work quite as well. I mean, I think also it would be better if the space for the drives was at the bottom of the computer instead of being in the front, because then you'd have a lot more room. Because like that other one had the space for the SSDs and everything at the bottom, which made it a lot easier to work with. But yeah, I'm trying to avoid that, because that's one thing that I don't need to upgrade at all, and especially considering the fact that I've basically upgraded my entire computer this year significantly. I just am trying to avoid that. But one of the other reasons why I decided to go for the graphics card now was mostly just because GPU prices are so crazy at this point. And I wanted to make sure that my upgrade was a worthwhile upgrade. And even though it's not as many gens ahead as I originally planned to do, in terms of the actual like power difference, it's double the power. So it is a significant upgrade. And since I'm not gaming in 4K, I should be in really good shape.
Yeah. And I mean, even like from what I've seen, the 7900 XTX is either neck and neck, or in some cases, slightly better than AMD's current 9070 XT. So it's like,
Right.
for being a gen old, it's still
Yeah, because the
capable of, like,
the
meeting
9070 is also 16 gigs of VRAM.
True.
I mean, it's efficient. It's very efficient, and from everything I've heard, it performs extremely well. But I mean, the 7900 is, for when it's a little easier. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily easier to get, but it has more VRAM, and I just wanted the raw power because I don't care so much about the AI stuff, even though, as I passed that video on to you earlier today, it is possible now to actually use FSR4 on the 7000 series cards, which is great. But either way, yeah, still going to be a worthwhile upgrade. So, and I did find out there is AMD software that does the same thing as the NVIDIA software in being able to record gameplay footage without having to like use OBS or anything. So some AMD software, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. So that'll be good. All right. One last thing I just want to mention here, and we can always talk about it later if you want, because I haven't really had a chance to mess around with it, but I did get the Satisfy grip for the Switch 2, so that's really nice. It's big and comfortable. It slides right into the dock, which is beautiful because, of course, the previous ones did not do that, and I always had to take it off, but it's like I could just slide it in the dock with the grip on, and it's very helpful. So when I start getting it back into playing Switch 2, I have that to make it a more pleasant experience.
Nice.
But what have you been playing this week?
All right, so I'm going to rearrange things from my least played to most played. So, in light of one of the announcements, which we'll discuss later, I decided to play some Fatal Frame 5 Maiden of Blackwater. And I originally played the demo for this game back on the Wii U when that was announced, and I played a good chunk of it. And in fact, the demo was actually much longer than I would have anticipated. I mean, I think probably roughly around the amount of time that I spent playing the game, and probably still I didn't play as much as I did before. I would say is roughly around how long the demo is, which I think is probably about a prologue and maybe 2 chapters, all things considered. Now, ultimately, I didn't get the game because of the fact that it was only digital in the US, and I mean, the only physical copy was in Japan, and unfortunately, the Wii U was not.
Region free.
It was region locked, so unfortunately, so I couldn't get that. But years later, when it came over to the PC, I got the game, but I never played it, and I decided to go ahead and give it a shot. I think the controls are a whole lot clunkier than I remember them being, because I mean, it probably is kind of that Japanese survival horror jank, as far as I guess you could say, with controls kind of like older Silent Hill. I mean, those were more so like tank controls, and this isn't a tank control type of game, but I guess that sort of like stiff movements, you could say. So on that end, it's definitely a bit janky there. But also, just using the camera was a whole lot jankier than I remember it being when I played the demo, because it's really kind of rigid, and it's kind of messed me up in several ways, because there have been times where I've been trying to snap a photo, but because of the fact that something's moving by quickly, I don't have time to take a picture. And that's happened to me several times. And I think also, depending on like if you're doing replays, it's something that you might have to know that's coming ahead of time so that we can get the camera ready. Because there were several times where Ghost went by, I was like, oh wait, let me get a picture, and then it's like, oh no, it's gone now. As I'm just trying to get the camera aligned properly. So it's definitely a bit of an experience there. And also, I would say is that also trying to engage in combat with the ghosts is it's a lot more in depth than I would have imagined, or at least from what I remember playing, because it's not necessarily enough to take a picture of them and then also say have them be as close to you as possible. There are also special circles that are floating around them, and you need to try to get as many of them in the frame as possible in order to do the most damage. And also, I realized probably about 2 minutes after fighting my first ghost is that there's a shutter feature where after you take the initial photo, if you rapidly click the snapshot over and over again, you can deal multiple damage to the ghost as well, which I didn't realize, and I probably could have ended the fight a whole lot sooner had I done that for the first time. I was thinking, all right, maybe just get a couple fatal frames and we're good to go, and I'm just realizing probably about 5 fatal frames later, because the ghost is very slow to try to attack you, so you have to wait a good deal before it lunges at you again for another fatal frame. And then I realized, okay, that's it's taking too long right now. I'm doing something wrong here. I also think that the exploration is kind of discouraged, because there have been several times where I see an area and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I want to see what's over here. Maybe there's something, some item, or maybe there's something, some sort of secret. And unfortunately, every time I try to go down a certain pathway I'm not supposed to go, the character says, oh, I should really go this way, or I shouldn't be going this way. And I'm thinking to myself, why do you have this hallway here? This open hallway. It's not like there's a locked door or anything like that. Why do you have this open hallway in the game if I cannot go down this open hallway? And so it's stuff like that where I'm just like, there would have been a better way to handle this rather than just saying I have no reason to go down this hallway. Just like, don't have the hallway at all, that would matter, or at least have it barricaded or blocked up or something. Because I mean, that actually did happen in another part of the game where there's a huge barricaded wall, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, that makes sense. I can't crawl through anything like that, so I have to go another way. But yeah, all in all, I mean, I don't know how a lot of fans consider this game, especially with like the older Fatal Frame games. They might think it's not as good as the other ones, which I might agree depending on how it is. And in fact, there's a game I played similar that was kind of a Fatal Frame clone called Dreadout, and that game felt a whole lot better to play. The controls were for a relatively, I guess, large indie game, or relatively small AA title. It felt like it had a lot more polish with the mechanics than this game. So I don't know. I might pick this up again some more, maybe not, but I'll definitely have to see there. Next game that I've been playing has been Halls of Torment, and I got back into the game just because a buddy of mine who has been playing the game and who got me into the game in the first place, he said, hey, there's some new updates and stuff, have you checked them out? There's new mechanics and stuff. And I said, I rage quit the game, or I stopped playing the game because the final area was just way too rough and I could not beat it. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to give this another shot. I'm going to go back and see if I can figure out what I'm doing wrong here. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong, and I got really frustrated. I went online and said, hey, how do you beat this final boss? Because he is just such a pain in the butt. And I realized that over time, the difficulty, which I mean, I kind of figured it's like that with the difficult or the hard modes of the other levels. I said, that makes sense. But unlike the other ones where after 5 levels of progression, it reaches a max difficulty, this one continues to build up. So the enemies continuously have more health and they continuously have more defense. So unless you're dealing enough damage, you're not going to be able to take down the final boss, which was an issue I had because I thought the boss was actually regenerating health, but it wasn't actually that at all. It was the boss just kept getting more defense and more HP, which is why I couldn't actually finish him off. And I found out a pretty efficient build, which is with the Shield Maiden, because if you buff up her defense and her block defense as well, she essentially can tank most, if not every attack, and enable a counterattack, which is just going to progressively wipe out enemies over time. So once you get her to that point, you can almost just leave the game idling, and she can just like wipe out the anything that comes at her way. And so using this build, and it took me a couple times, I also had to add the person I said don't add any abilities because it's really just going to slow you down. I added one ability that enables fragility in enemies, so that way they're weaker and it's easier to wipe them out and stuff. So I added that ability, and that really helped. And I think after 2, maybe 3 attempts, I was able to beat the final boss, and I was just like, oh yes, thank you, I finally beaten this thing. And yeah, and so I mean, since then I've been just trying to go through, knock out some of the 175 roughly achievements that I needed to get for the game, and I've been making progress on that. And I think last time I checked, I'm at probably around 380 or so, so that's probably another 120 achievements that I need to complete the game. But I mean, at the very least, I might pick up and drop the game just because, having to do multiple runs and to get all these achievements is a bit time consuming, but at the same time, at least I finally beat that final dungeon, and I'm happy on that end. So I've gotten at least one W out of this game so far, or at least the big W I can think of. But then primarily what I've been playing has been Clear Obscure Expedition 33. And there's been progress, there have been mistakes, and there have been learning opportunities. So progress. I've gone through most of the Endless Tower stages. I think I'm roughly near that. I think I'm at 10-2, stage 10-2. So I'm close enough to that. I think it's probably 4 stages left then, I think. If it goes up to 11-3.
4 altogether. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm right near the end. But I am getting a bit of a brick wall with some of these later fights, and has been a bit of a crawl trying to get through them, and even with managing my tactics. So I decided, let me go and see, trying to find more efficient builds and stuff. And I realized that there were certain Pictos that I didn't have that I thought I had, or ones that I thought were ones that I did have that weren't the ones. So for example, I think it's I had Last Fighter Standing, which I thought was one that was essential for Mael, which is true, but the one that people also recommended is Survivor, which is if you're flying up by yourself, you deal 50% extra damage. So I realized that I did not have that. So I've been going around trying to find where to go, and going to new areas, or going to areas that I didn't realize I had missed to get some of these Pictos has been useful, and also just trying to level those up as well. And eventually I got cocky and said, you know what, or at least I got bold, and I said, I'm gonna go and plow through Renoir's drafts. And I'm doing that, and at a certain point, because I still am trying to find out where the next flag is, and I'm just like, all right, some of these enemies are a bit, they take longer to defeat than I would like, so I'm just trying to rush through some of them. And then I reach this secret passage when I see a creation there, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's just one creation. It's not that bad, right? I mean, granted, I have not fought a creation up to this point yet. And so I said, well, now's not, a bad time to fight this thing. And I think that was the last Nevron foot that I needed for Minoko for its achievement. And so I said, maybe I should fight this. But I mean, there's nothing bad here, right? I mean, it's not like if there was something bad here, then maybe there'd be a flag here that's a save. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and fight this thing. It was a chromatic creation. And I'm like, I have never fought this thing before, and it's chromatic. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is not going to be good. And I mean, kind of a mixed bag thing is, technically, I could have beaten him on my first try overall. I got him so close down to 0. Unfortunately, I messed up and my party was wiped out. And if I had stuck with using the rest of my of my expedition, I could have beaten him. But I really wanted to get that Nevron foot, and because Minoko was wiped out, I couldn't do it. So I restarted the fight, and second time, I knew his skills, I could beat him. So I was pleased with that. I pressed forward and I kept going on, and then I eventually found the flag I needed to go to, and I said, there's a portal here. Seems like it might lead to some sort of super boss here. I went through the portal, and then, Verso saying, I think we should turn back. And at that point, it's sort of like where I messaged you and saying, hey, I think I'm about to reach this boss here. Super boss here, the hardest boss in the game. And so and of course, while it wouldn't be ideal right now because I don't have the optimal build for my party because of not having the Pictos I needed, and also I realized that for CL, one of the abilities she needs to buff, she needed to buff my L. I didn't have unlocked yet. I needed to level her up about 2 more times before I could get that skill. I mean, granted, I could just use I could reset her skill tree, but I was like, no, I'm close enough to like leveling her up. I might as well just level her up and then get the skill. But I decided to go ahead, and just to see what he was like, I went to fight him, and the results were pretty much the same as I was expecting. He took me by surprise several times, and before I could even use CL to any of her abilities to help out with my L, he just wiped her out, one-shot her, and I was just, well, there goes, and then she was erased, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there goes that. And Minoko, he tried to help. Unfortunately, he didn't do too well either. And then my L, I mean, she did a little bit there, but inevitability and all that jazz. And then, yeah, last crew got wiped out inevitably, and then so, I mean, yeah, it's a learning experience there. And I'll come back to him, but definitely interesting to see that's there. So of course, like I said, I've been going around trying to get new abilities and get new Pictos, and I was very curious because I thought that I had beaten this boss already, but apparently I didn't. And there is a boss where you can actually farm colors of Lumina. And I went to face the boss, and because the thing with this boss is it spawns clones throughout the fight, and if you destroy the clones, they essentially reward you with colors of Lumina.
Oh, okay.
And if you use one of Verso's weapons, it gives you an additional 3 Lumina. So essentially, as you can just kill them and farm for that entire fight. The downside to this is that whenever those clones die, they have particles that stay there, and as the more particles that build up on the screen, your performance drops until eventually your PC crashes, or your console crashes or whatever. So for the sake of the clip I sent, I only farmed up to probably roughly maybe 10 minutes or so or something like that. And because I was also recording in OBS, I didn't know if that would impact anything, so I said I'm just gonna record enough so everyone can see how that works, and whatnot. But once I stopped recording, I kept playing, and sure enough, as I kept playing through, because I went to also see how the frame rate was doing, it slowly dropped, and it went down to the 60s, went down to the 50s, slowly worked its way down to the 40s, then started going into the 30s. And around that point, I said, I don't know what the threshold is before the game crashes, so I'm just going to cash in my chips and call it a day. So I ended up getting about 350 Lumina from
Wow.
just that fight alone. So I mean, it's definitely worthwhile to use that as a farming method. And of course, if you like have a more powerful PC or hardware, you can definitely go a lot longer. I mean, I've seen people say they've gotten like 1,000 Lumina from that
Wow.
fight alone. But yeah, so right now I'm just at a point where I'm again trying to find the rest of the abilities I need for the build. I'm still going through a couple of different areas, like Reacher right now, because there is one skill that Mael needs, and I didn't even know there was a merchant near one of the late areas there. So I'm going there to get a skill from him, and then just eventually go back, finish up Endless Tower, and then maybe go and see Simon. But I also know that there's another area for another super boss you can go to, so I might see her first and then go see Simon. But yeah, that is everything that I have played.
All right. Very nice. Yeah, trying to think here. Well, for one, I didn't know about that Lumina farming spot. I mean, there was some other ones that people had suggested, but I didn't know about that one, so that's good to know whenever I eventually go back and do New Game Plus, because I'm sure I probably will at some point. Especially after I upgrade my PC, I really want to see how the game performs at that point. Comparatively speaking, if I can just do native resolution and not have to use any upscaling and see how it runs with that. So yeah, good stuff. What else was I gonna say? I guess that was pretty much it, other than Fatal Frame is definitely not a me game. But yeah. Cool. All right. So one of the first things I want to point out, so of course we had that Nintendo Direct on Friday, and one of the things that they showed there, this isn't something we're going to discuss later, but there was a demo up for Persona 3 Reload, which is great. That's perfect, because I had been wanting to, do a comparison at some point, and so I went ahead and looked up I downloaded the demo and I tried it out. As far as how it looks and performs, well, it looks fantastic. I mean, beautiful visuals, all that. Performance is exactly what I thought. It's locked at 30 FPS. And so it's definitely not one where I would want to ever buy it on Switch 2. I'm actually really, really glad that they have that demo, because the demo's like the first 5 or 6 hours of the game. And since I do think I probably will do a comparison between this and the Steam Deck version. Being able to do it without having to buy the game, especially when the game is a key card instead of actually being, a full game on the cartridge, that works out really well. And I'm actually hoping that means, in fact, I think it's very likely, that when they do Metaphor Revantasio, it's going to be the same deal where they have that long demo, same one that they have on PC and other platforms. So that actually works out quite well for those games. I'm very excited about that. I didn't play a lot of it. I basically played like, I want to say 15-20 minutes, because I started doing it during a lunch break, but I didn't have enough time to get very far into it. And then because of how busy I was over the weekend, I didn't have time to actually do any further recording. So I'm going to have to go back to it later and record the rest of the gameplay. One thing I'm definitely going to be doing differently than I've done in the past is I'm not going to have an hour straight of gameplay. I will record like the first hour, and then I will cut out basically highlights of different areas and that sort of thing, just to give an idea of how the game performs independently for different things. So that way it'll be a lot less work and still be able to do what it is that I wanted to do with that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it looks really good on the Switch 2 screen. Obviously not as bright or anything as it is on the Switch OLED, or would be on the Switch OLED, and as it is on the Steam Deck OLED, but still looks quite good. And the 30 FPS was a little rough to get used to, because I mean, even though it's not a game that needs 60, it is better at 60 without question. So but the main thing that I ended up playing most this week was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I just clicked the wrong one. So, I guess I should first of all say I finished it. It's done. It's completely done. I got all achievements. I cleared all areas. Just everything is done. Like I'm satisfied with how far I got in the game. I don't feel like I left anything incomplete. I completed every single quest. I completed all areas. I completed all the DLC. I got all the achievements. As far as I'm concerned, it's 100% complete. So that is a very good thing. Now, one of the things that came up, so I had mentioned last week about how I was having a hard time figuring out what area on the map I had missed, and I spent some time going around trying to find anything that I had missed. Eventually I found some areas that I had missed, which I thought, even though they were separate from the main map, that maybe that's what I was missing, because it just seemed like I thought I had gotten every last little bit of the main map. I didn't see anything there that I was missing. So I go through this story thing that basically kind of, it's like the real ending for the story, I guess you could say, because basically it just has him do like this final adventure thing, and then after he does that, it like shows an outro that has him going into Egypt and stuff like that, and just kind of hints towards future Assassin's Creed games. But when I did that, I still didn't have that achievement for finding all of the map pop up, and so I'm still trying to figure out where to go, not having any success. So I decided, okay, instead I'm just going to go ahead and continue working on the remaining side quests I have. I mean, they're all several of them are tied to achievements anyway, and maybe, just maybe, I'll come across that last area that I'm missing. And sure enough, I followed a quest, and then I found that there was a single area on the map that was still grayed out, that was not actually, I hadn't set foot on. And as soon as I set foot there, the achievement popped. So it was like, great. Now, one of the things that came up that was much more annoying, it turns out there was one achievement that was missable in the game. And I did not know that, because the rest of the achievements are not missable. And it was in the DLC, in the earliest part of the DLC. Rather the first section, because you basically have 3 chapters, like three different episodes for the Fate of Atlantis DLC. You start off in Elysium, then you end up in Asphodel, and then you go to Atlantis after that. So in Elysium, there was a specific quest line that you had to do. You had to do something that wasn't like entirely part of the quest, like it was a side thing that you didn't have to do, but you had to do it in order to get the achievement, because you had to recruit 8 people's minds in each of the 3 areas, so that they would be able to fight with you in the final fight of that first episode. And I had completely missed that. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to go back and do this, because I'm not restarting the game. Initially, my thought was, because you can start up the DLC from the main menu, maybe I'll just have to suck it up, go back, restart the DLC from the main menu, and then from there, just speed through as fast as I can so I can do what I need to do in order to get this achievement. But then it occurred to me that it's possible I had a save from earlier in the game to where I would still be in Elysium, which means that I would still have the opportunity to get this achievement. And sure enough, I did. I did have a save that was in Elysium, and it was like shortly before I would be doing the part that I needed in order to get the achievement. Now, I still had quite a bit of stuff I had to do before I could finish out the thing, because basically you have to do all these things. I mean, you do like a mission that has you recruiting these people, and then after you've done the mission, you have to do a bunch more missions until you get to the point that you can do the final fight. And then after you finish the final fight and watch the cutscene after you end up down in Asphodel, then the achievement pops. So as soon as I did all that, probably took me another like 5 hours worth of work. But after I did all that, the achievement popped, and I left the DLC, went back to the main game, and I don't know, 2-3 hours later, I finished up the rest of everything that I needed to do and finally fully completed the game. So very happy with that. Glad that I finally did it. But at the end of it, I didn't feel like I was, I mean, like I felt like I was satisfied in terms of this game. Like there's nothing left for me to do. I uninstalled it from Steam Deck, uninstalled it from my desktop. Altogether, I had about 177 hours. It may have been as much as like 180 hours, since I did have to go back to an earlier save to spend some time on the DLC. But either way, you know, it was a lot. But at the end of it, I was kind of feeling like, you know, I think I'm ready to go on into another Assassin's Creed game. And my initial plan was that I would go back into start with the first one and then work my way through the rest of the ones that I haven't played before, which is the majority of them. And so I booted up the first Assassin's Creed game on Steam Deck. Max settings can get a locked 60 FPS, no problem. The controls are definitely much rougher in terms of just, they're just not as refined. You know, they do a lot of things in the first game that they don't do in the later games. And so it very much felt more dated from that standpoint. But I basically just restarted the game because although I had played probably 5 or 6 hours previously on Steam Deck, this one doesn't have cloud saves. And that was on my original Steam Deck, and I didn't have the save anymore. And realistically, because it had been a while since I played anyway, I wanted to restart just to refamiliarize myself with the controls and everything else. And so I did that. I only played for like maybe an hour or so. So basically just got a little bit of time during a lunch break. And then I decided yesterday evening that I wanted to go ahead and, since I had gotten it on sale, I don't remember if I told you this or not, but I had gotten Assassin's Creed Valhalla on sale. So I decided to install that and started playing it. Now, I have played a bit on Steam Deck, like probably about an hour on Steam Deck, and then 2 or 3 hours, something like that, on my desktop. There are definitely some quality of life improvements over Odyssey in this one, which you know, have been nice. I think the game does run better than Odyssey does, even though it's also a better looking game for the most part. It kind of makes me think of the difference between Black Flag and Odyssey, or not Odyssey, Black Flag and Rogue, which both of them play very similarly, but one of them is in like more tropical areas, and then the other one is in more snowy areas, and that's basically the difference here. Odyssey and Valhalla, you know, with the latter being in snowy areas because it's Viking settings and all that. On Steam Deck, I'm able to get a pretty consistent 40 FPS, at least in the prologue section, which didn't spend a whole lot of time outside. It was mostly indoors. I think, I mean, I got a little bit of time outside, but I didn't get a chance to test it a ton because I basically like played it a bit and then switched over to my desktop after that. But you know, it runs well enough to where I'm pretty happy with the performance I get on Steam Deck. On my desktop now, at least in the village, it can drop down a bit in frame rate, even with mostly high settings and everything at 1440p. But then, like the footage I have recorded here was a bit later, like when I was in mountain areas and that sort of thing. And there I was getting anywhere from 100 to 130 FPS pretty frequently. It was like more often than not. So it was like, I'm quite happy with that performance. As far as, I mean, like visually, it's gorgeous. Very good looking game. Um, Gameplay, it's definitely, I can tell that there are aspects where it's going to be very bloated. And there's going to be a lot of stuff, but I'm basically looking at this as a game that whether I play it a lot now or just play it a little bit here and there, it's not going to be a game I'm in any hurry to get through. So I'll just kind of work on it little by little as the mood strikes me and just not let myself get burnt out. I'm not making the mistake that I made with Odyssey, and I'm not buying the DLC unless I finish everything else and want more. Because Odyssey, I bought the DLC long before I was completely done with the game, and ultimately that's part of why it took me as long as it did to get through. So, yeah, but I mean, I like what I played so far. Like I said, there are definitely some quality of life improvements. The simple fact that you actually have a sprint button is a big quality of life improvement that I don't even know why they got rid of it. It's like they had it in Origins and I think most of the previous Assassin's Creed games. But for some reason in Odyssey, there was no sprint button. And then they brought back the sprint in Valhalla. And I haven't experienced much of the story yet. The little bit that I experienced was at least relatively more intriguing. I don't know yet whether or not I like the main character, but I can already say that I probably like him better than I liked Alexios in Odyssey. So, I don't know. I think also, maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just because I haven't been around Greek people a whole lot, other than, like, one Greek friend I knew in high school that was... I mean, well, she said that, like, my big fat Greek wedding was a very accurate representation of what it's like being around Greek families. She didn't... I mean, the people in Odyssey, they, like, overdo the Greek enunciation, like, to the point where it becomes kind of distracting for someone who's just not used to that. And so far in what I played of Valhalla, there's not, like, that overwhelming accent to where it just kind of gets old. Because I guess it wasn't even necessarily the accent. It was just like everybody, they're like overemphasizing the Greekness of how they say their words, I guess you could say. I don't know how else to explain it, but that was part of it. I mean, really, there was a lot of things that I really didn't like about Odyssey. The gameplay overall was good, other than the fact that it was super bloated. But one thing I have heard about Valhalla is that the story is very bloated. It's a lot longer than it should be, but the area, like the map, is a lot smaller than Odyssey, which to me, I would kind of prefer that. I would rather have a smaller, more full map than have a really bloated, really full, I mean, really large, really full map, because I definitely felt like Odyssey was just, there was just too much. And coming at Valhalla, having a better idea of what to expect, and just kind of not intending to rush through it, not intending to be like, oh, I'm going to finish this in no time, makes it a little bit easier. But we'll see whether I, like, am really playing this now, or if I'll just play for a bit and then, you know, play it off and on, because that may end up being what I do. It may be that I play this more on my desktop and then play the first Assassin's Creed more on my Steam Deck, since that one runs a lot better there. But like I said, honestly, I don't really know right now. I didn't get to play any games at all today. I just didn't have time for it. So we'll kind of see, you know, where I'm at tomorrow. I'll have my Steam Deck with me for sure when I go to the office and play that during my lunch break, and then figure out whether I'm going to play Valhalla or play more of the first Assassin's Creed. So, but yeah, that's everything.
Okay. So regarding the first Assassin's Creed, I know you said it doesn't have cloud save.
Hmm.
Does it require you play, or is
Yeah,
that
yeah, they all do, all the
uh,
Ubisoft games.
okay?
But I mean, it it installs it automatically with the game.
Okay. Okay. Um, I know you didn't. You said you didn't play too much of it, so you don't really have much of the story and characters as well. But
Hmm.
how do you feel about the main character compared with Bayek from Origins? 'Cause I know you really loved Bayek.
Right.
Um,
Well, I mean,
or how do you
Bayek,
think you might enjoy the character?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm gonna like him better than Alexios, but I don't think that he will ever match Bayek because Bayek was the most relatable for me because of the fact that he was a husband and father, and um, these other characters are not that at all. Now, um, Eivor, the main character of Valhalla, which you can actually choose whether you want them to be a male or female. And like the very beginning of the game, when you're a child version of them, it's ambiguous as to which they are, and that's intentional because then after a little bit later, you have the option of choosing to either be female or male. Um, from what I have seen of him, at least his background of how he got to where he is, to me is more, I guess, respectable, relatable, maybe. But it's so early in the story that it's hard for me to say. I know that there's not a chance he'll be anywhere near Bayek for me. Um, but it's still possible I'll like him more. I definitely really like the setting. Like, Odyssey was a beautiful game, and I liked how, bright it was and everything, and the tropical settings were cool. But I also really like the Viking thing, and I don't know. Oh, one thing I do want to mention. This is just kind of a random thing, but it was very much appreciated. Um, so when you're first booting up the game, you're given the option to change a variety of different settings, and one of the settings that they have is the option to uh, turn off nudity because I mean, these games don't typically have nudity, but I guess Valhalla does, and so I mean they say like nudity, like topless women, and it's like, yeah, I would like to turn that off, thank you. And the fact that they even had the option that they didn't just like surprise. I very much appreciated the fact that they had that option. I mean, their reasons for it, I'm sure, are not. I mean, obviously they're not my reasons, but my reasons as a Christian man who doesn't want to uh, view that stuff because it's not good for me in my walk. I very much appreciate the fact that they had that option from the start. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a setting you don't really see often, if at all, in games. So that's definitely a very nice change of pace there, you could say. Um, I guess just partially because I want to understand progression, because I know you said there were some quality life changes. So in order of releases, is it Origins, Odyssey, then Valhalla, or is that order mixed up?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's the exact order, and then Shadows is obviously the one that just came out.
Yeah.
Which
And
who knows?
is
I may decide I want to play that somewhere down the line, but I'm in no rush whatsoever.
and is I know you said that you were concerned about stuff being bloated. Is that partially because this one also has that type of, I guess, stat-based mechanics, or did that one go back to the more, I guess you could say, traditional Assassin's Creed,
No,
where
it's
like
it's it's very much like Origins and Odyssey in terms of its design. Um, the main reason why I'm a little worried about the potential bloat is because I've heard from people that it's very bloated, and I've heard that from people who didn't think Odyssey was bloated. So if they're saying it's bloated and they didn't think Odyssey was bloated where I did, then it's a bit concerning to me. But I'm not sure how much of that bloat is because of the story, because I've heard the story is really long for an Assassin's Creed game, especially. Um, But I don't know. I think it also helps just the fact that I've already decided this is not something I'm planning to like get through in a short period of time, but I also don't expect it to take me 6 years to get through it like it did with Odyssey.
Oh, well, at least you know it'll be ready for you for a Die Hard Christmas. At least,
Yes,
you know.
exactly. And I would say it's very likely I'll be playing this one while doing Die Hard Christmas.
Mm. And maybe during the Stack Ups live stream, or
Probably. I think there's a good chance of that, especially because of the fact that I have I'll have the GPU upgrade and everything, so it'll run really well with that. So
all right, good stuff.
all right. Well, let's get into the news. So, of course, the first and foremost thing we'll have to talk about, because it was announced after we recorded last week and aired on Friday, is the Nintendo Direct. I will already say in advance, none of the previous predictions we had made, I don't think, actually were revealed here, other than a couple of release dates. But let's just go through and talk about the games that stood out to us, or any of the topics in general. I think most of what we have is the same, but why don't you start us off?
All right, and so this one I know is not on both of our lists, so I'm just gonna go ahead and knock this one out of the way. That was Fatal Frame 2 Remake, and so this is something that came completely out of left field. No one was really expecting this, and this, from what I've heard, is considered to be the biggest, or I guess the fan favorites out of the entire franchise. So the fact that this is getting a remake is great, and the fact also is that if you want to play the original PS2 version, I think there was a Wii port as well, you're not going to have to spend scalper, or not even scalper, but just like resellers on eBay that will charge you, upwards of $90 plus just for a copy of this game. So you're gonna get a full remake, and hopefully this will be within the $50 to $60 price range. I really don't see Koei Tecmo charging more than $60, but you can get a nice full remake and enjoy it that way. Multi-platform as well, so that's great. So it's not just coming to the Switch 2, it's also coming to every platform. So I've already added that to my Steam wish list, and hopefully a lot of the jank issues that I kind of found with Maiden of Blackwater aren't there in this game, but we'll see.
Yep, that's another big nope for me. So moving on. So one thing that I know wasn't on your list was the Yoshi game, and I can't even remember what it's called. I'll see here momentarily. So I will already say I'm not 100% sold on this game, but I do think the idea of it seems pretty interesting, and I could see how it could potentially be a fun game. Um, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm a little mixed, because I think the gameplay has the potential to be pretty fun, lots of discovery and checklists and that sort of thing, but I think a lot of it also depends on whether this is the kind of thing where you have levels that you have to keep replaying, because like I love Yoshi's Woolly World. That is a fantastic game, and I love the fact that you can go through a level and do everything in a single run through a level. I mean, there's lots of secrets and everything else, plus it has a great soundtrack, all that. It's just great gameplay. But like Yoshi's Crafted World, while it was fine at first, the thing that irritated me about it, apart from the fact that the soundtrack just wasn't very good, was the fact that you had to replay levels multiple times to do everything. And it was just like, that was so irritating to me that I never finished the game. Like, I just got tired of playing it after a while, because I wanted to do everything in a level and then move on, instead of it being like, oh, I have to complete this many levels, and then, oh, now I can go back and redo an earlier level and hope that I actually get the one or two things that I missed the first time, because now they're available. But, oh, then sometime later, oh, there's more stuff available in this previous level, and it's just like that was irritating to me so much. So I never got super far in it, but this one at least has me potentially interested. I know I definitely would not buy this for $70, but I would consider getting it on a discount down the road. We'll just kind of wait and see. So it's Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is the name of it. Coming out next spring. And yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, I have never played a single Yoshi's. I mean, I guess depending on how you say it. I mean, Yoshi's Island is what I know the most. I mean, granted, I think I played a little bit of the Game Boy Advance version of that game.
Yeah.
At like a Walmart kiosk or something like that. But
okay.
I think the fact that trying to get Baby Mario repeatedly and him crying and trying to get him before he flies off the screen, that was just too stressful for me. So I never tried playing any other Yoshi's game since then.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe eventually down the line. I mean, I think I have at least one or two of the Yoshi games, but I've never played them at all. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'll see. Maybe I'll finally give the series a real shot at some points. But just right now,
Woolly World is the one that I definitely very highly recommend. Whether you play it on play the Wii U version or the 3DS version. I mean, the 3DS version, really the benefit to doing the 3DS version is just if you like playing with the 3D and it's a portable version. But since you can emulate the Wii U version, I mean, I think the 3DS version might add a couple of extra things, but for the most part, it's basically the same game. Just, the 3DS version is, I think, probably only 30, whereas the Wii U version was 60. And, but it's a really good game, and the music is phenomenal in that game as well. I mean, I think the soundtrack in the original Yoshi's Island was also really good, but yeah, the Baby Mario stuff was pretty annoying, and you don't have to deal with any of that in Woolly World. So it's really just in the first Yoshi's Island. I don't think it's in any of the others, but I think the Yoshi's Island is the one Woolly World is the only one I've gotten far in, and the others I have not.
And just out of curiosity, think about it. Did you ever play Yoshi's Story on the N64, or
I did
have
not.
You not? Okay.
Yeah. The first time I even played a Yoshi game was probably Woolly World. Because Yoshi's Island, I didn't play it until I think I tried it out on the Super Nintendo Classic, but never played it before that. And the only reason why I even have much of any familiarity with it is because my kids used to watch the gameplay of it all the time because they were obsessed with Yoshi. And the music in that game is fantastic, but the stuff with Baby Mario definitely got annoying at times. Oh no, I'm actually wrong though. Yoshi's New Island I played a little bit. That one was nowhere near as good as Yoshi's Island though, and it still had the losing Baby Mario portions. So, but yeah, that's all I got on that game.
I guess the next game I have on my list, and this might be something that you have, is Hades 2. And reason I select this is because of the performance that this game has, and that it reaches 120 frames per second, docked or handheld, and I think that's great. The game definitely looks good. Also, I can't remember when the release date is, but they did announce the release date for version 1.0 for consoles, and I can't remember. Let me see if I can pull that up or not.
So it's releasing first on Switch 2, and the 1.0 version on PC, and then later it will come to other consoles. But I'm pretty sure that it's exclusive at least through the end of this year, maybe longer, for Switch 2 and PC, or Switch 2 and PC.
Okay. All right.
So basically the same thing they did with the original Hades.
Well, except this time though, it's not Epic Store exclusive for a good period of time before it comes to Steam. So that's so good. I guess they were like, yeah, we see that this game got popular, so we're not gonna try to make it exclusive this time. Epic Games can't money hat us this time. But yeah, definitely great that's coming, and Switch 2 performance definitely amazing and incredible, and also it's getting a physical version, so that's also good as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one where I probably would pick up the physical version on Switch 2. Assuming that it has assuming that the full game is on the cartridge. If it's not on the cartridge, then I wouldn't pick it up at all for Switch 2. But if it is on the cartridge, then I would probably pick it up there. Because, I mean, like the Switch 1 version of the first Hades was fantastic. I mean, it ran beautifully, flawless 60 FPS and looked fantastic, especially on the OLED screen. Now, of course, it runs better on the Steam Deck OLED, but from the looks of it, the Switch 2 version will run even better. Although I'm not entirely clear on whether the 120 FPS is just in 1080p or if that's also in handheld mode. Because I know docked it is, but I have to look at that again because I kind of get them mixed up in my head between this one and a couple other games that are going to be 4K and or 120 and all that. So, oh, here we go. It says TV mode is 1080p 120 FPS, handheld is 1080p 60.
Okay, well, I mean that's still not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, 120 FPS is fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. Of course, if I'd be curious to see what the Steam Deck could do plugged into my monitor. 1440p and everything. Would it be able to do 120 FPS at 1080p or, yeah, I'm curious about that. I would definitely like to check that. I know that if I run it on my desktop, even if I was just using my current card, I'd be able to get, 1440p, 240 FPS without a problem. But yeah. Yep, definitely looks great. I still want to finish the epilogue on the first Hades before, or, get the epilogue on Hades 1 before I play Hades 2. Because I don't feel like I finished it until I actually get that, since that's like major story stuff. But maybe one of these days I'll boot it back up and work on it some more, because it is a great game. And I've heard nothing but good stuff about Hades 2 as well. So
about how
cool.
close are you into getting the epilogue?
I don't know. I know I have to like max out the relationships with all the different Greek gods in order to get it, and or maybe with a handful of them. I can't remember exactly how it works, but I don't have it with much of any of them, so there's a lot to do from that standpoint. I mean, like I gotten the I got the end credits and everything, beat the Hades like 10 times or whatever you had to do in order to get the initial ending, and then the actual epilogue requires more grinding and stuff. And of course the game's so much fun that it's not like it's difficult to do per se, just a bit time consuming. So all right, next game I'm going to bring up here, because I know it's not going to be on your list, is Danganronpa 2, which is getting like it looks like basically a remake and then some additional story content. Now, I will be clear, I don't have any plans to buy this necessarily, but I'm curious about it. Because I played Danganronpa 2 on the Vita, and I mean, looks like visually it's obviously drastically improved. I'm curious as to how much like some of the wandering, for example, the like traversal around the environment, whether that is something that has always been more HD in the previous the versions outside of Vita, or if that was, or if all of them were like the Vita version. Because I have the Decadent collection that includes all the games on the Switch, the physical version of that, but I've never checked it out on there because I had already beaten the game, beaten all the games before. I'd beaten the first 2 games on Vita, and the third one, unfortunately, was already delisted from Vita by that point. So I got it on Steam and played it there. but yeah, I'm just curious about this one because the Danganronpa games are fantastic. So yeah, good visual novels. Definitely not for kids, but very good visual novels.
Yeah. I definitely think this is a good good remake, and I mean, this is the first remake for the series they've done so far. I know they've done multiple ports and stuff of the older ones, but this is like the full
Yeah, I mean,
remake
well, the
remake.
thing is that I think it's a remake, but I'm not 100% sure because, like I said, I've only played the Vita version, and so it looks different than the Vita version because I remember the Vita version was more side-scrolling for the traversal. But yeah, I would really have to. Really, I just need to boot up the Decadent collection on the Switch and find out how it compares. And I know, of course, there's additional content that wasn't on the original version.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, I, I still haven't started the series yet. I think I only have the first game so far. But I think before I would get into like this one, I would have to, of course, go through the first game and play that and
Right.
complete that before I would say, all right, I think I'm now ready to get into the second game. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you definitely enjoyed the series. And so, I mean, I haven't played too many visual novel types of games. I mean, the only one that I've really played has been, Doki Doki Literature Club so far.
Mm.
And I guess technically to a degree there are some aspects of visual novel and like the Ace Attorney games, but I mean that still also
Yeah, I
has
would
like
consider those
adventure
visual
elements in it
novels.
as well. So that really
Well,
doesn't.
yeah, I mean, like I would consider all these to have adventure elements, but Ace Attorney, I would definitely consider visual novel as well.
Hmm.
So I would say
Okay.
Danganronpa has about the same amount of that sort of thing as Ace Attorney.
All right, then it's definitely something I would say that would be enjoyable then because I really enjoy the Ace Attorney games and
Hmm.
especially being able to go and try to find evidence and stuff. I mean, the only times that things got frustrating was just in the court and trying to present my
Mm.
case. I know that
Yeah.
it's kind of like an element in the Danganronpa games when you're like trying to figure out
Yeah,
who
but the
the.
Danganronpa, I think it's done better. Because honestly, like some of the connections in Ace Attorney, at least, because I've played all the way through the first two games and partway into the third one. Some of those connections were just like, okay. I mean, I guess I see how that works. Although I always found it hilarious how completely, I mean, like this is supposed to be the US legal system and it has absolutely no resemblance to the US legal system at all. I mean, like you and I have both watched Nick Rekieta in the past, and him talking about stuff and everything. And I remember people used to have him play the Ace Attorney games, and he would just talk about how this was not at all a good accurate representation. And I didn't realize how far off it was until I actually started watching trials, especially when he was, covering them. And it's like, yeah, there's a dramatic difference in how it functions.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe I'll at some point soon give the first game a shot then, since I found these turn games to be enjoyable. So if this has
Mhm.
a better trial experience, then I might enjoy it even more so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll definitely have that on my. I'll bump that up on my backlog list. I'll put it like that.
There you go. Yeah, and it's not a very long game. I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how many hours. I feel like it was maybe around 30 hours, but I may be remembering completely wrong. I'm probably mixing it up with a different visual novel because I know it wasn't very long. I don't think it was quite that long. But like I just don't remember. It's been a long time. But yeah, good stuff. All right, what's your next game?
All right. So this one isn't necessarily a game. I mean, has games you could say, but this is accessory, and that is the Virtual Boy. So, for those who are watching, maybe you're too young to know this, or maybe you're someone who just didn't know this thing existed at all. I mean, granted, I never knew this thing existed, and I also probably was too young for this anyway. But
Yeah.
Nintendo had a device where they actually tried to get into the VR space, and they made this device called the Virtual Boy. And yeah, it didn't really do too well. But they're bringing it back now, and they are charging 100 American dollars for this device. But, you could also buy the cardboard version for $24 as well for whatever reason. Additionally, they kept it true in the same spirit of the original one, where there's no it's not like a modern VR headset where you just strap it on and you're good to go. This one, you have to have it on a tabletop and you have to peer into it and stuff. So you got to sit down at the table, hunched over, looking into that thing. And from what I've heard, people were already straining their eyes on the original one. Now you get to strain them on the new one and have a hunched over back at the same time. So you're gonna have back problems and eye problems at the same time. For $100 too. The crazy thing also is the fact that the Virtual Boy didn't really even have that many games on it to begin with as well. I think there were at most, from what I've heard, is like 24. And that may or may not be including the overall market, because there might be some
14.
games that were 14. Wow. Never mind. Yeah, I was trying to be nice here, but but yeah, so this is just insane to me. I mean, I've heard there were, a few games on there that were pretty good, like the Wario game. I've heard was considered pretty good. And there's one, I think, sort of like robo boxing game that was decent and kind of really showcased the Virtual Boy as far as like being a VR thing. But there were several games that really didn't really take advantage of the VR aspect of it. It was more so just essentially a 3DS before the 3DS, because it was just 2D games but had foregrounds and backgrounds, more or less. So this thing here, I don't know why they wanted to resurrect this. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And also the fact that, correct me if I'm wrong here too, but the games also require NSO, so it's not like you can just buy the games outright.
Yep.
You have to have the NSO subscription. So
yeah, you have to have NSO to buy the Virtual Boy stuff and to play the games.
Yeah, so this thing is just insane to me. I mean, granted, no one could have predicted this. No one could have predicted this. And if someone had even leaked this thing ahead of time and said, hey, guess what, guys? Nintendo's going to announce the Virtual Boy at the next Nintendo Direct, you would be laughed out of the store or whatever place you're at, because no one would believe that. Because who would think Nintendo would bring that thing back? And I mean, maybe some things in gaming history have been, they weren't given enough recognition, or maybe they just needed like another chance to get things right. I mean, we've seen this sometimes with games that had cult classics and were brought back years later in remasters and stuff, and they did well. The Virtual Boy is not one of them. I'm sorry. And if you spend $100 on this thing, clearly you're doing pretty well in life, because you have more money than sense. So yeah, that's essentially everything I have to say on this matter.
Okay, so I double checked, and you were correct. There was a total of 24 games, but some of those were Japan only. So for those who haven't been listening to us for a while, there is actually a Virtual Boy emulator that you can get on a modded 3DS that allows you to have all of the games in stereoscopic 3D without having to pay for NSO and without having to hunch over in front of that goofy headset thing. And it's like it's an interesting novelty, and it's actually pretty cool being able to experience that 3D effect without having to deal with the headaches, the back pain, and the potential seizures. And you can also change the color so that it doesn't have to be the red. It can be, any number of other, single colors, that sort of thing. I tried out a handful of the games on there, including like Wario Land and Mario Tennis, and there was a Jack Frost game. It was like a Shin Megami Tensei spin-off game on there that was pretty fun. And and I think there was like I don't think it was actually a Star Fox, but it was something kind of like that. It was some type of airplane shooter game. I can't even remember what it was called, but anyway, so there was a handful of games like that were interesting, but it's not, I mean, paying for this thing, I mean, especially if you don't already have a Nintendo Switch Online membership, it's ridiculous. And it's funny, I was reading comments in some video, I don't remember which one it was, and some Nintendo simp was of course simping for Nintendo and saying, people need to get over this $100. It's not that much with inflation. And it's like, it's still a lot of money. I mean, you are part of the problem. You are the problem. It's people like you that are the reason why they're charging $100 for us. Now, I recognize, yes, from the standpoint of what it is and what it does, the fact that it makes it possible to do the stereoscopic 3D, but you still have to have the Switch or the Switch 2 in order to be able to do it. And you have to have the Switch Online membership to be able to play these games, or to buy the accessory, even if you decide to go with cardboard version. It's just like, this is a Nintendo thing to do, and I'm glad that I just grabbed them through the emulator on 3DS, because it's like Nintendo made it impossible to buy them. In fact, you've never had a way to buy them apart from with the original hardware back in 1995, which is what the year you were born, right?
Yes.
So it's like, yes, you were by the time this had already been discontinued, you were like maybe a year old. So it's like, I tried out a Virtual Boy in a Target demo kiosk back in 1995, back in my day, and it was just kind of like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I wasn't really into Nintendo at that point, so to me it didn't make much of a difference. But yeah, I would definitely say, especially if you still have a 3DS, you're much better off just taking a little bit of time to install custom firmware. It's not difficult to do, and you can get a Virtual Boy emulator and you can test out these games, and you don't have to give money to Nintendo for this kind of thing, because they're not making it possible to buy the games, and the fact that you're having to spend so much to try out these games, it's just not worth it. You can get the good part of the experience, playing the games with the stereoscopic 3D, but do it without having to have the ridiculous headset or anything to experience that. And granted, I'm pretty sure you don't have to have those to play it that way. You just won't be able to get the 3D unless you get the headset or the cardboard headset thing. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. All right, so next thing on my list that was not on yours was that we got the reveal for the next Super Mario movie, and it is going to be the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which to me is fantastic. I'm very happy about that. I mean, Mario Galaxy is a phenomenal game, and of course, both of us really enjoyed the original Mario movie, even with Peach being very much a girl boss, and it kind of becoming more annoying each time I watch the movie. But my kids love it, and that part aside, the movie was fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to the Mario Galaxy movie. It's coming out next April in theaters, and I'll definitely be going to see that with my kids. So,
And I thought about it just now. It in a sense it kind of makes sense. It's Super Mario Galaxy because they did kind of tease that in a sense,
right.
saying like there's a whole galaxy of worlds. That line was in the first movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of cool that they have that. I think that also in the video they said that it's not just Galaxy, that there were going to be aspects of other games included as well.
Yeah.
So that would be cool.
All right. What's your next thing?
My next thing is going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, and part of it is because they did announce the official release date for the game for the Switch and the Xbox, which is in January. But not only that, Square also gave a confirmation for the whole trilogy as a whole, and that is that all the games will be coming to every platform. They confirmed that the trilogy will be multi-plat, meaning that Final Fantasy VII Part 3 is not just going to be on the PlayStation. So, whenever they officially show the trailer or whatnot, PlayStation fans won't be able to say, oh, well, just because you got Part 1 and maybe you might be getting Part 2 doesn't mean you'll be getting Part 3. No, Square's already said it's coming to every platform. It's a multi-plat title. The trilogy will be on every platform, so it's good to have that confirmation. I mean, granted, it wouldn't make sense just to have one part and not have the other two, but having that full confirmation that the trilogy is going to be on every platform is great. And who knows, depending on when Part 3 is released, maybe by that point it might be a day and date for every platform. That would be great.
Yeah,
it might not be. It might be, Square might still be in some sort of deal with Sony where they have to have it be an exclusive for some period of time. But I would still say 1 year at most. And then, right after that, they'll probably just say, all right, we're releasing on every platform now. Xbox, PC, Nintendo Switch 2. It's for every platform here. So that would definitely be great. Now, one thing that was also later... Well, the funny thing is that during this announcement, they were kind of sneaky about it. They said there's going to be a physical version. Turns out that is also just a game key card. So,
of course.
You will not be getting the game on cartridge. And I will say that it does the game does come bundled with the original FF7, so if you don't have that on the Switch, then if you get that, you also get the original game as well. And also the price isn't bad at all. It's only $40, I think, which is very good, all things considered. So, that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I didn't know that came with the original Final Fantasy VII. That's great. Because, I mean, obviously the original Final Fantasy VII is great. So that's very cool. Everything I've seen about the Switch 2 version is very promising. I mean, it's only 30 FPS, but, that's perfectly fine. I mean, well, I should say, for playing on a handheld device, that's perfectly fine. Now, it would be nice if they could go up to 60 for docked mode, or even just give people choices, because, like, you can do 40 on the Steam Deck. 60 even in some sections. Honestly, the one thing I'm most curious about is how it's going to do in towns, because that is the one area where it runs like garbage on the Steam Deck. And granted, the Steam Deck version isn't optimized for the Steam Deck. It's just the PC version, and because of the fact that it's based off of a PS4 game, it, runs well enough on the Steam Deck. But yeah, I'm definitely curious about this. I'm also hoping this one will have a demo, because once again, that would save me having to buy it in order to do a test. But I also really don't want to buy the key card. I mean, like, if this was going to have a full game on the cartridge, I would probably buy it, because not only do I want to support that, but right now I have every Final Fantasy game on Switch. that's available right now. So, I mean, it would be really tempting, but yeah, since it's just a key card, definitely not buying it. So, it's a shame from that standpoint because it is a great game. But yeah, the $40 price is also fantastic. That is a very good price because it has a good amount of content. It's a very good game. I really enjoyed it. I do need to get back to Rebirth though. I'm kind of thinking I might start doing more of that after I get my graphics card upgrade. But of course, then there's also games coming out next week that I have pre-ordered, both the Sonic Racing game and Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics. So we'll see what happens. But um, yeah, either way, yeah, this is very good. So going along the same lines of my last one, we got the confirmation of Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 coming to the Switch and the Switch 2. And this is going to have, you can either buy both games digitally, either as a 2-pack for $70, or you can buy them individually for $40 a piece. There's also going to be a physical version, but the physical version is only the 2-pack for the $70. So one thing that I have to say about this is that I wish there was an option to just get the physical version of Mario Galaxy 2 since I already have Mario Galaxy on the 3D All-Stars collection. But at the same time, they do add some stuff to this version. And Mario Galaxy is a really, really great game. And Galaxy 2, I've been asking for it for the past 4 years to have it on Switch after playing the first one on Switch. And so, as although I'm really like generally not in favor of that price point and do wish it was cheaper because of how good these games are, and because I feel like it's less of the BS than we're getting from most Nintendo games, I'm getting the physical version. I'm gonna do it. And it's like, yeah, I already have Mario Galaxy on 3D All Stars, but I mean this one does have, well, for one, it's on TVs it can do, well, dock mode it can do 4K 60. Um, I I don't know about whether what would be for what it would do for 120 FPS if it does that. That part I can't quite remember because, like I said, I get a lot of these different games crossed in my brain. But I think this is one where they're not going to delist it like they did. It's not going to be a limited time release like what they did uh, with 3D All Stars, because this one is not specifically for the 40th anniversary, whereas 3D All Stars was for the 35th. And instead, this is probably going to be more of a permanent thing. Plus, of course, cross promotion with the movie coming out. So theoretically, it could get cheaper down the line, but with the way Nintendo's been about pricing lately, I'm not getting my hopes up on that front. Either way, I know that I really want to play Galaxy 2 and play it. I mean, because it was pristine on the Switch, the first Galaxy game. Like it was just perfection. Like it was beautifully optimized. Locked 60 FPS, and it looked amazing, and the gyro worked extremely well. And here it's like you have the gyro already, which is great, but then you also have the option of mouse mode, which could be really useful as well. So you just have multiple things that to me work in favor. Even if I'm not a huge fan of the price point, I'm willing to in this case. And considering the fact that I'm probably not going to be buying much of any actual first party Switch 2 games, with the exception of a very small handful, I'm willing to do it this time. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that front. I know you're not going to be buying this. At least I'm assuming you're not. But I still am curious about your thoughts on this one.
Yeah. It's nice they're doing the combo. It's nice that this isn't a limited time thing like 3D All Stars. but that price is just ridiculous. I mean, you have fewer games, sure. Two of them are older than the other games in this collection. I mean, if you can call it a collection, it's just 2 games. But sure, those games are older, but you're paying more for one less game, which is ridiculous. And I mean, consider that the Metal Gear Solid collection on, I think, the PS3 came with 5 or so games, and it was $50. And the Kingdom Hearts 1 plus 5 plus 2.5 on the PS5, that was $60. And you had more games for a cheaper price.
True.
It just really... It's like, how is Nintendo always getting away with this when other companies are giving you more for less? And yeah, it has 4K. It can do 120 frames per second, if at like 1080p, and it has, like the gyro and mouse controls. That still, to me, does not justify the games being $35 to $40 a piece, for what were originally Wii games. So, like, I really cannot find any way to justify this price point. And, I mean, maybe if I did play the original games, I didn't have a Wii. That was actually probably the one time when even when I was a fanboy, I wasn't, like, sticking up for Nintendo, because I was like, motion controls are a gimmick and whatnot. But if I had played it, I probably would feel a bit more aching in my heart. But I'm just like, I have no attachment, so I'm able to. So I can do this without it, like, feeling sad about cutting this off. But no, if they had said, we're gonna toss in these 2 games, and I don't know, they've already put the Wii U games on the Switch already, so it's not like they can port that. So, like, if they had included, 2 other games, maybe I might be inclined to say, I'll give you some wiggle room here. I can cut you some slack. But it's just 2 games that came from 3 generations ago. Yeah. $35 to $40 a piece. That's nope for me. Like I said, only good thing I can say is that's not a limited time release, which, I'm still sour about how they handled it for the 3D All-Stars collection. But yeah, that's really all I have to say.
Yeah. Nope. Totally respect your opinion, and that's fine. I mean, like, I'm largely in agreement with you, but I don't know. Now, for me, I never played these games on the Wii. That was part of why I was so interested in 3D All-Stars, and the fact that it was, a portable way to play those games, which otherwise I just wasn't sure if I would ever actually play. And so I got 3D All-Stars because I really wanted to play those games, and I wanted to have a portable way to play them, and I ended up really loving them. I do wish that, especially, like, both Super Mario 64 and Sunshine had been 60 FPS, because there's really no reason that they weren't, except that Nintendo was just being lazy about updating them. But I still really enjoyed both games, and then Galaxy was superb. I mean, like, Sunshine was actually probably, honestly, was kind of my favorite of the 3. I'm one of those crazy people, and I think it's mostly just because the control improvements between 64 and Sunshine were just so dramatic for me, to where it just, like, I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. But then Galaxy was just incredible, and the fact that once you beat the game, you could play through it a second time as Luigi, and it would be quite a bit different, because Luigi controls so much different from Mario. It just ended up being really fun, and, since I had never played those through, or, had never completed them before, I went through and I did all 3 games back to back, and I got all of the stars in all 3 games, or stars and shines. But Yeah, so Galaxy 2 I've wanted obviously for a while because of how much I enjoyed Galaxy. And while my preference would of course be just having Galaxy 2, I really want it physical, especially because if it ever gets to a point that Nintendo bans my Switch or something, at least if I have the physical game, I can still play it. Whereas if I have the digital version of just Galaxy 2, they could take that away from me. And yeah. But no, I'm in agreement with you. I think your opinion is 100% not only valid, but probably the correct opinion. But I'm willing to make exceptions occasionally for things that I just really want to play. And this is one of those that I really want to play. And just because the Steam Deck experience was kind of mixed, just in terms of sometimes how it would stutter a bit. Yeah. Anyway. We can move on, though. All right, so I think you have, what, one more game on your list from what you gave me? Which is on both of our lists. So, you want to talk about that one?
All right, so this is, shockingly, Metroid Prime 4. And we did get a release date for this, and that is December 4th? Is that correct? Oh, yeah, December 4th. And I was so wrong about the release date. I was expecting, October, maybe November at the latest, but not December. So I was wrong on that end. Additionally, there is, they've definitely changed some stuff with the game, which I'm not really feeling too much. So Samus has a motorcycle. Has a motorcycle now, which, thinking about it, after I saw the trailer, I thought Nintendo's really had a thing for motorcycles within the past, gen or so. Like, because with Breath of the Wild, part of the DLC was getting a motorcycle,
Right.
which
Yep.
I think was really weird, because having your fantasy world have a motorcycle, even if you say it's like engineering, because you're using rune magic science and stuff.
Right.
It's just weird. It was just out of place to me. It's like going back to the Middle Ages and saying, Sir Henry, what type of device should we traverse upon? And then he says, how about we take our carriage, but only use 2 wheels? Why, genius, Henry. Thank you. Like, that's the type of thing that really just, it seems so weird to me, having Link just drive around, on a motorcycle. But at least in here, in Metroid Prime, it's a sci-fi world. It's futuristic.
Right.
So having a motorcycle isn't out of place. I mean, I think it still looks a bit weird because that's not. I mean, sure, she has a spaceship and she travels on that, but I know this just seemed. It just seems different. But I think the biggest thing, which is the reason why they have in the first place, is to make it easier to traverse, is because it's an open world game, it seems, and that really seems like a no to me. I mean, yes, Metroid games are about exploration and trying to find new areas, either to find certain areas where you could try to sequence break to get to like new parts, or get to new parts earlier than you normally would be able to. But on the other hand, having that organization of things, and sure, you might say, well, to a degree, the other games had, a full large areas, but I would say no, that's really just more like semi-open to a degree. I mean, it just had larger areas which were still contained, and you knew, hey, I need to go to this area in this particular place. And it's not like you had a huge, like, gargantuan map. So I'm really not fond of the idea of having just like a whole open world. I don't think that's something that the Metroid series really needed. Having something smaller, more contained, where you could go and explore, but at the same time not feel like you were like in a huge ocean of possibilities. Like, I think that's like being able to do less with more, or being able to do more with less, is I think is really what helped with exploration in not just like the 2D, I mean, especially with the 2D games, but also with the 3D games as well, is not feeling too overwhelmed, because I mean, there was still a lot to do in the previous trilogy. So I don't really know why they decided to go with an open world. Maybe just because of the fact that it's popular and in vogue, and that's why they decided to do with it, because it's like the modern thing in games these days. But I really could have done with just that. But I mean, I understand that's probably the main reason why they added the motorcycle, was because of the fact that, if you're trying, that definitely would have made things a whole lot worse if you had to walk on foot to like every place.
Yeah.
So, I definitely understand why they added that. And otherwise, Samus isn't exactly the fastest thing in the Prime games. I mean, sure, in the 2D games, especially once you get the speed booster, yeah, she can be pretty fast, but in the Prime games, not so much. So I definitely understand why they added that in there. But yeah. But and also another, I guess, sin I spotted, and this is also doesn't necessarily apply just to Metroid Prime 4, but I'm just picking it out because the topic is the pricing of the amiibo. $30 for just the Samus one.
Yep.
$40 for her and the motorcycle. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, I remember when amiibo were $13 a piece. And I mean, the only time you actually saw something that expensive was when you had like the huge big ones, like Detective Pikachu or the giant woolly Yoshi. Like, those were big amiibo. So while I didn't necessarily like the price, I could at least understand it. Now we're getting smaller, regular size amiibo that are $30. And I mean, and like I said, this isn't just to the Metroid Prime. Like, I think even with the Kirby racing game, that one's got $40 amiibo too.
50.
Oh my goodness, no.
50.
Wow. Yeah. What are we doing here? How did we go from 13 to 50 now? I mean, that's insane. And I mean, it really makes me glad to a degree that I sort of got out while I did, because if I still had that same attachment that I had before, I would painfully have bought both of the Metroid amiibo. But since I have severed my connections to Metroid now, I have cut that pain out of my heart. But I just still think it's insane how Nintendo can charge this much. I mean, I have never seen a type of Toys to Life product that I mean, just saying, by like the standalone stuff. I know that with, I think the what was it, like Skylanders or stuff like that. I know that
Starlink.
I know that those would have stuff that's like $50, but that also included whatever, I guess, scanner that came with it as well. So it's not like you just have the individual things that cost $50. Here you have the actual individual pieces cost $50, $30, $40, and it's just insane that we've gotten to that point. I mean, I remember at one point, even like before we got all the stuff, I was considering saying, maybe I'll go ahead and collect the entire amiibo collection, because it was just Smash Brothers at the time. And I was like, eventually I'll get all of them. But then once they expanded outside of that, I was thinking, I'm probably not going to be doing this, am I? And I can't imagine how much it would cost to just try to keep up with these things. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's almost going to be like Borderline Funko at this point. Thankfully, it's not that, because there are only so many franchises Nintendo can make a amiibo out of. But it's just ridiculous how expensive these things are getting now. $50. That's the price of Clear Obscure Expedition 33, which you can get on discount now right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have to say. Oh yeah, and also I guess one last thing is which I think possibly we talked about before, maybe not, but I'll just quickly toss this in. Switch 2 version of Prime 4 is $70, which
Right.
ugh. But
I mean, we already knew that was going to happen regardless. So yeah, so I'm definitely in agreement with you on the motorcycle thing. I'm like I would rather it just doesn't exist in the game that they didn't do the open world stuff. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, um, in that the rest of the game will be good enough to make up for any emptiness in that the overworld. I'm hoping maybe they'll actually use it as an opportunity to have maybe some more like mini dungeons or something that make use of her different abilities and all that to make it feel a little more worthwhile instead of just being a bunch of open empty space. My hope is that they'll at least have music that's good enough to make traversal across the open world enjoyable, because if the music isn't good, if it's just quiet the whole time, that really just you can't do that in Metroid because the music is good. It's like you got to have some music to help you get across those gaps and not just the occasional enemy encounter. So yeah, I'm definitely not entirely sold on the motorcycle stuff, but I mean, it's Metroid Prime 4. I I was always planning to get it anyway, and Retro hasn't failed us yet, so I'm getting it, and I'll let you know how it turns out. And then if nothing else, you can buy it used, and then you don't have to give Nintendo a single dollar. And that would be my suggestion: is just buy it used, and then you don't have to give Nintendo any money. But yeah, um, yeah, honestly that my biggest concern with the open world is that it's just going to be super empty and just feel like it's basically a loading screen instead of actually being something that's enjoyable to traverse, because sometimes the traversal can be fun in open world games, and it can even just be like relaxing a bit. But with Metroid, I'm just afraid, because I've never done that before, and it just seems like that's a bad idea. So we'll see. Maybe Monolith Soft helped them out to fill out the world a bit or something, or some of the Zelda team helped to fill it out and have some secrets here and there. But I guess we'll see. But that's all I have for thoughts on that. Anything else from you?
No, sir.
All right, well, let's move on into our next topic. So, there was a rumor going around from Moore's Law is Dead, notorious leaker slash making stuff up guy, who said that the PlayStation 6 was going to have ray tracing on the same level or equivalent to the RTX 5090, the top level NVIDIA card, which is, of course, $2,000. Well, that's the MSRP anyway. It's certainly not that cheap in general. So according to him, the let me find. He says that the PlayStation 6 will apparently boast ray tracing performance that is on par with NVIDIA's RTX 5090 graphics card. And there's not really a whole lot more he said on that front. Essentially that the AMD Orion architecture that's going to be featured in the PS6 will basically be how they achieve this better ray tracing. Now, he did clarify later on in a post on Twitter after people just ran with the stuff that he said. And I'll just read what he said. So after sleeping on it, I thought I would point out a few things that apparently aren't obvious to everyone with regards to comparing PS6 and RTX 5090 performance. One, the RTX 5090 will likely be around 100% better at rasterization than the PS6. LOL. Again, let me repeat that. Double PS6 performance in raster. That's massively higher performance, and that's the main reason why the 4 nanometer 5090 is such a power hog compared to the future 3 nanometer PS6, because it is overall a lot faster. Furthermore, people should remember how bad the 5090 is at gaming per area. The 5090 is roughly double the size of the 5080, and yet only 50% faster. And he's talking about physical size. It's just a chunky, incredibly chunky. It's like me versus you. You're the 5080. I'm the 5090 in terms of size. So, um, and yeah, it's only 50% faster. So it's not much faster. Very inefficiently designed GPU for pure, when it comes to pure gaming. It was built for AI first and gaming second. Number two, PS6 will utilize a better node than current GPUs, more modern and efficient memory, and a purpose-built operating system. All those things will cut down on power compared to a hypothetical Windows PC with a 2.5-year-old GPU that uses an old node 5090 in 2027. Number three, a lot of people around here don't remember how stupid haters sounded regarding Xbox Series X and PS5 back in 2019. So I'm just seeing if there's anything else that's really relevant beyond this. But basically, in short, he initially made these claims, and then he clarified on them after people ran with the stuff that he very clearly stated in his video. And either way, even it, regardless, what are your thoughts on this whole fiasco?
Yeah, obviously, what he originally said did not make sense at all about it being better. And even with stating what he said, I'm still, even if he's just saying the ray tracing elements will be on par, I still find that hard to believe. I mean, for one thing, Sony is going with an AMD APU for their for graphics and stuff. AMD has nothing on Nvidia in terms with ray tracing. That's just the thing. I mean, AMD might be able to compete in terms with like some rasterization stuff like that, but in terms of like stuff that requires machine learning or anything regarding like, especially with like upscaling with FSR and versus DLSS, ray tracing, AMD can't compete in that area. I mean, AMD's gotten better, don't get me wrong. FSR 4.0 is better than FSR 3.0 and is fairly decent, but it's not as good as DLSS 4.0. And while, with the current generation of GPUs, the 90 series, AMD has put in AI-ready components in there, sort of like how NVIDIA put in their Tensor cores starting with the 30 series. But it's still not going to be on par with NVIDIA. So I don't really see how, in the next generation or so, AMD is suddenly going to make a massive jump to be competing with a high-end NVIDIA GPU. Again, sure, he's just saying with the ray tracing capabilities, but even then, I still find that hard to believe that AMD is suddenly going to make such a massive jump,
Right.
where they're able to compete with a top-end, graphics card from their competitor who does it so much better. And the fact that Sony is managing to do all that and put that in a console, which is also going to, not cost as much as a 5090. that also, again, and sure, like he, Moore's Law said, it's still going to be half as powerful as a 5090. Well, sure, but I still highly doubt that it's going to be able to have the same levels of ray tracing. And even then, you know, how's that going to impact performance? You know, even if you have the special type of cores that are dedicated to that, is that really going to impact performance? Because we've seen that ray tracing, even if you have, you know, high-end GPUs, that's going to tank your performance substantially.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's really going to matter too much if you're going to, again, you know, go from having a new generation and out of the gate you're going to already be starting with 30 FPS games, which for at the beginning of a new console generation. So it's like, is that trade-off worth it at the end of the day? And part of me is just thinking this is partially Nvidia's to blame here, because they've really pushed this whole thing, which again, in the beginning, this type of thing with especially with like upscaling DLSS, you know, that's some like good on paper, because you can, you know, squeeze out extra performance, or if you have an older GPU, you know, it could help out, you know, help you run the newer games. But at this point, it's starting to become a crutch, and that combined with forced ray tracing, I should say.
Right.
And, you know, now we've got companies saying, well, you know, just get newer hardware so that way you can do it, because, you know, say if you are on an older RTX card that doesn't yet have tensor cores, or especially if you're on an older AMD card that doesn't have AI capability, or, you know, Steam Deck, you can't play these games because it doesn't support ray tracing. And it's just like, why are we doing this? Why are we forced to make these types of things? And, you know, I just hope that Sony isn't buying too much into this type of thing, like needing it. They probably are, but I just hope not. But at the end of the day, though, I really am skeptical about this. You know, if he was to say that the ray tracing was on par with a 5070, 5080, and that's a huge stretch there with the 5080,
Yeah.
I could probably maybe buy it. If he said a 4080, I'd be more willing to believe that. But a 5090, even if it's just the ray tracing aspects, I still find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's everything I have.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where people really just need to get their expectations in check and just take these things with a grain of salt, because Moore's Law is dead. While he's been correct sometimes, he's also been wrong a lot. And the fact that he's claiming, even if he's just talking about the ray tracing performance, that it's on the level of a 5090, there's not a chance. There is zero chance. And the idea that with PSSR, the ray tracing performance that it's had is what Digital Foundry said was lower than low. It was lower than the low ray tracing settings on PC. And I think that was with them testing on like a 4060 or a 5060, something like that. You know, comparing it with that, and it was lower than the lowest setting on a fairly low end card. The idea that it's suddenly going to jump all the way up multiple generations beyond what AMD is even capable of doing right now in that short period of time, I'm sorry, that's just not happening. At least not without a significant price tag. Because the reality is, especially with the 50 series cards, especially 5090, what you're paying that extra amount for is more than anything, you are paying for the AI stuff. You're not paying for raw performance improvements, because it's barely a performance improvement over the previous generation cards. It's been getting worse each generation from that standpoint. Now, is there definitely going to be improvement? Absolutely. Without question. I guess I should say there should be improvements. I would assume there will be improvements. But I could also see them selling some snake oil and saying that it's improved when in reality it's not. Kind of like how Nvidia said that the 5070 or the 58, I think they said the 5070 was going to be equal to a 4090. And it's like, come on. You cannot be dumb enough to believe him when he says that, especially for the price. It's like, don't believe what they're selling you. They're lying to you. Don't believe that. Now, of course, Sony hasn't officially said any of these things. These are things that Moore's Law is Dead has said he got from leaked documents. Whether or not that's actually true, I'm very skeptical. And I think you should always be skeptical anytime someone tells you a console is going to match the highest end GPU out there on anything. Don't believe it, because you need to temper your expectations. It's okay that it doesn't match that level. That's why you're paying a lower price. You're getting what you're paying for. You're not going to get $2,000 performance or ray tracing or whatever for a $700 price tag. That's just not happening. Like, I recognize, even though I did get a good deal on my 7900 XTX, and from a raw rasterization performance metric, theoretically it could be on a similar level to a 5090. I also recognize it's not going to be on the same level, and that's fine, especially from the AI standpoint, because the AMD side is much less intelligent for the artificial intelligence side than the NVIDIA side. You have to understand that you're getting something different. I mean, if you're paying less money, you're not getting the same thing that you're getting for more money. At least not in general. Sometimes there are occasions where you'll spend less and you'll get more because the other company's ripping you off. And certainly graphics cards are way more expensive than they should be. But, I mean, like, the only time I would probably say in general it might be true where you're getting more performance for less money would be in buying PCs versus buying Macs. Because Macs, you're mostly paying for the very lightweight operating system. You're paying for the slim profile, for the aesthetic, and just for the name, the brand name and how it all like goes together. That's basically what you're paying for. You're paying a lot, but you're paying more for things that have existed on PC for years. Like the most recent iPhone, they just advertised the ability to, as a brand new thing, to be able to record with both the inside and outside camera at the same time, which has existed since the Samsung Galaxy 4.
Oh wow.
There was a video that I found that was showing that from Nick Tech, which is like one that does a lot of tech things, and they were just saying Android users, when they see the latest iPhone features, and all these features have existed on Samsung for literally over a decade. And so it's just like, oh, yeah. You're getting a very old feature, and it's being packaged as something brand new. Granted, it's in a much slimmer profile, but and then they have the new iPhone Air. It's like super duper thin, but then you can get a battery to go for it to give it extra battery power, and then it ends up just being like 3 times thicker once you add on the battery. It's like a magnetic battery for the back, and it's like, yes, this has existed on Android for a long time. So there are times where you are legitimately able to get better performance for less money. Sometimes. But when it comes to consoles versus PCs, that's not the case at all. The reason why PCs are more expensive are because you're getting a better product. And now, I still think it's way more expensive than it should be, for graphics cards especially. But, yeah, I don't know. I got nothing else to say on that. All right. You want to talk about Randy Pitchford's comments on Borderlands 4?
Oh boy. All right. So Borderlands 4 came out, and it has received some mixed ratings on the Steam store. And as a result, Randy Pitchford, who, of course, leading up to the release and even the announcement of, the price and dates of Borderlands 4 has said some things. He's now come and added some more feedback to stuff. And starting off with this regarding the reviews that, of course, people, if you're on Steam, you have to pay and buy the game before you can leave a review, have said, this is what he said to them: code your own engine and show us how it's done, please. We will be your customer when you pull it off. The people doing it now are clearly dumb and don't know what they're doing, and all the support and recommendations in code and architecture from the world's greatest hardware companies and tech companies working with the world's greatest real-time graphics engine coders don't know what you seem to know. /sarcasm. And also, he later added this additional tweet, and he said, every PC gamer must accept the reality of the relationship between the hardware and what the software they are running is doing. And yeah, so that is what he said additionally to, in response to everything that has happened, because let me see what the exact number is right now on Steam is. Let me just quickly, whoops. The current rating for the game, like I said, it's mixed, is yeah, it's currently at 64% on Steam right now. But yeah, that is essentially, well, the gist of things. And before I add in all of my thoughts, what are yours to this clearly wise sage here?
This guy just keeps sticking his foot in his mouth. I don't understand people like this. I mean, it's just like when Todd Howard was talking trash. Well, actually, no, I think Todd Howard was not quite as bad, because Todd Howard wasn't as aggressive with his when it came to Starfield. But Randy Pitchford just doesn't seem to understand these things. No, your game is not optimized. The fact that it requires DLSS to get a decent frame rate or frame generation, it's like, yes, I agree. You should absolutely tell people that, yes, you might have to adjust your settings, and that's fine. But when you have top-end cards, the highest-end card you can buy, not even able to maintain 60 FPS at 4K. I mean, that's just 60. That's not even above 60. It's terrible. And I think in a lot of cases, that's even with using DLSS. Now, when they use frame generation, of course, they're going to get a lot better frame rate technically. But frame generation, that's not real frame rate. And the games should never rely on those things. Like you said, it's a crutch. And it's ridiculous that people like Randy Pitchford seem to think that this is excusable. And of course, it doesn't help that there are a whole lot of people who refuse to call him out. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with playing at 20 FPS on consoles. Because, you know, the frame rate drops to ridiculously low levels, and visuals and performance are not up to par where they should be for this game. And granted, I'm sure Denuvo has a lot to do with the problems with performance. But even without Denuvo, the game should not, I mean, even with Denuvo, the game should run better than it does. And yeah, even if I was interested in Borderlands 4, which I'm not, because I have multiple Borderlands games that I haven't finished. I haven't finished Borderlands 2, and that one's considered by pretty much everyone to be the best in the series. You know, I'm not interested in Borderlands 4 anyway. I'm even less interested now knowing how terribly it runs. And then, of course, you know, when you have someone like Randy Pitchford talking trash about people who expect that the game should actually run decently. Not even great. You know, nobody's asking for it to be 120, 240 frames per second. They're just asking for it to run at least 60. And when people have super powerful rigs that can easily run most games at 100 plus FPS or at minimum 4K native 4K 60, this is just inexcusable. So that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, I definitely wholeheartedly agree. There's no excuse for this. And here's the funny thing too, is about his claim about about us coding our own engines. He didn't even do that. He's using Unreal Engine 5, which is an engine
Yeah.
he didn't even code, nor his team coded in the first place. This isn't even theirs, and they're trying to tell us to code an engine. You didn't even do that. Which, on one hand, might actually have been a thing that could have helped them, because Unreal Engine 5 historically has not been the best engine for optimization. And I mean, and then quite a few studios have actually used their own engines. I mean, Kojima's used, originally the Fox engine when he was with Konami, using the Decima engine currently with his studio, and the games look and run well. And, up to a point, Square, before they were using Unreal, they were using their own engines as well. Man, and now I've lost I've lost them, but there were also other developers that have used their own engines. So like, you can do that. You can make your own engines, and run off of them. And I mean, while it didn't, because of the open world aspect, it was horrible. The RE engine, Capcom has had a good mileage on that thing. I mean, that thing has been solid outside of Monster Hunter Wilds, that is, but it's been a very good engine.
Dragon's Dogma too.
Oh yeah, and Dragon's Dogma too. Outside of those two games, because of them being open world games, they've had great performance, and it's been great. But yeah, Unreal Engine has just been a mess here, and it really shouldn't have been like this, because the game it's not even a type of game where it's really highly detailed and really nitty gritty. Right. It's a cell shaded game, so you would expect it to perform better. I mean, that's part of, granted, also the lasting factor of the graphics, but that's one of the reasons why cell shaded games are great, because they should theoretically perform better than the games that are trying to be all realistic, because they're not having to do all that stuff there. So this is really, really uncalled for. And I mean, if he's just trying to, provide support for his team and say, trying to, back them up, that's fine. But he could have said in a whole different tone. He could have said, we hear your frustrations and we understand we understand where you're coming from. We're working on trying to make a better product for you. We apologize for this. And could have left it at that. But instead, trying to berate people. And here's the kicker. Again, like I said earlier, in order to leave a review on Steam, you have to have had bought the game, or of course, gotten code from somewhere else, which you most likely purchased anyway. So you would have had to have bought the game in order to leave a review. So these are people who bought your game. They gave you your they gave you their money, and you're berating them because they're not satisfied with the product that you gave them. And this is a constant thing where I cannot think of this happening in any other industry or any other field. Like, you cannot, if you have a plumber and they do not fix like any types of leaks you have, or they make things worse, if you go and tell them, we do not like the service you provided, you've made things worse, we had a small leak, now like there's water getting everywhere, they're not going to say, oh, well, you just don't understand. You do it yourself then. You fix it then, buddy. You think you're so smart? That doesn't happen. And you don't go to a restaurant and say, say you got like a chicken sandwich or something like that. And then you say, oh my goodness, this chicken's so raw. It's nasty. I mean, it feels like this thing's so raw. It could be getting ready to hop up and go back to Old McDonald's farm. Like, you can, if you have bad service, and you call it out, and it's legitimate, complaint because there's something wrong, that's acceptable. Like, people understand if you get served something that's ridiculously nasty, or if you find something there that there shouldn't be in there, that makes sense. And people are fine with calling it out. But if you criticize the game developers, shame on you. You should do it yourself. I really don't understand why there's this weird mentality where um, game devs and studios should be shielded from criticism. Like, I really just don't get why they're allowed to be shielded, because you cannot get away with this in virtually any other industry at all. And I mean, that's just that's ridiculous to me. So he definitely should be called out. And also, again, it's also funny because he was, before, well, first he was saying that he had no control over the price of Borderlands 4, but then, later on when the price was released, said, see, this could have been $80, but it's $70. Is that $70 still worth paying, though, for a game that it can't even maintain 60 FPS on a 5090?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And also, I'll see if I can find this and send it to you. But regarding his second comment about PC gamers having to accept the reality of the relationship between their hardware and software, what's the excuse for consoles? Because consoles also have been having issues. I saw this one clip shortly before the podcast. Like I said, I'll have to send it to you, where someone who was playing on an Xbox, he got to a section and the frame rate dropped probably into the single digits, where you were having seconds per frame essentially. And it was just like, it was horrible. And so what's the excuse there? What are you gonna say there? Turn on frame gen, change the settings. It's on a console. It's supposed to be an optimized version of the game because there's only one system. There's like one set of hardware. So how can you mess that up? So what are you gonna tell them? Again, these are people who bought and paid the game at least $70. If they bought some of the deluxe or special editions, that's gonna cost them, $100, $130. And this is the type of performance they're getting. Make it make sense to me. But yeah, this is just a whole nasty situation. And I mean, I wasn't interested in getting this game, and especially now, it's a huge nope from me. I'm content with, I think I've only got 1 and 2. I'm content with those games, and similar to you, I haven't even, well, no, you said you started them, but I haven't even started them yet, so like I still have time to get into them anyway, so it's a no big deal to me. But I just think this whole situation was not handled appropriately at all. And yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I guess the thing that bothers me the most about this, and just so many of these games that are broken like this, is that you'll have people just be like, oh, it's perfectly fine, even when they're getting horrendous performance. I mean, especially on the console side, it's just, they just accept, so many of these people will just accept it, even when it's terrible. It's like, come on, please have a little bit of self-respect on that front. And I mean, I can't pretend like I'm perfect on this either. There have been times where I've given more of a break than I probably should have. But by golly, I mean, it's just like, come on, people. It's very clear that there are problems with this game. Please call it out, demand more, and you will get more. If you just accept everything that they give you, even when it is horrible, they're going to keep giving you horrible stuff, and they're going to keep pushing the envelope and going to keep making it worse. And then by the time it's so bad that you finally decide to start complaining about it, it's going to be too late, because they're just going to ignore you. And I don't know. I mean, to some degree, like I said, I do think I can be preaching to the choir, because there's definitely times where I've accepted things that are just less than what they should be. But with things like this, I think it's just it's going too far, and it needs to be called out. And it's like, of course, you and I have slightly different opinions when it comes to the Mario Galaxy collection, and I guess it's not so much that I don't agree with you, it's more just that I'm buying it because I want to buy it. Even though I'm not a fan of the price, it's kind of more of a begrudging purchase because I really want to play Mario Galaxy 2. But, you know, things like this, or like Monster Hunter Wilds, for example, you know, it just isn't good enough. Or you know, Metal Gear Solid Delta, just not good enough. Now, I'm definitely going to be curious with like Monster Hunter Wilds, seeing how it performs with my new graphics card. I'm definitely going to test it out. I'm hoping I can at least get a locked 60 FPS, but I would prefer it to be even better than that. Even though I wasn't like super interested in playing the game, I am just curious to see how it runs with the new card. But anyway. All right, I think that's all for that. We need to start wrapping up because it's late. So let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. So go ahead and start us off.
My recommendation is going to be just to enjoy the time you have with your family, friends, and loved ones. I think after recent events, you know, it really shows how quickly it is, you know, to lose your life, or, you know, how quickly it is, you know, that things don't go as you expect. So definitely enjoy the moments you have with your family and friends, because tomorrow's never guaranteed. So yeah, that's really my recommendation.
Agreed completely. So I have a couple recommendations that are less serious, and then one that's more serious. So first of all, my first recommendation is remember that VGA cables are not the same on both sides. One end goes into the power supply, the other end goes into the graphics card. Just remember that when you're plugging them in, so that you don't waste a bunch of time trying to force it into the power supply when it doesn't fit there. My next recommendation, if you decide that you are going to play the DLC for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, make sure that you look up what you need to do for the missable achievement. Because even if you don't have any intention to go for the achievements, you don't want to be in a position where you decide that you want to go for all of them, and then you either don't have the ability to because you're so far past it that the only way to do it would be to restart it, or you basically have to like replay a bunch of the game. It's not worth it for that. So if you just look up what you need to do, get it done as you're playing through, then that way if you decide you want all the achievements, you're already good to go, rather than having to do what I did. So the next thing, this is actually serious. So if you are happy when someone who you disagree with dies, reevaluate yourself. Maybe see a therapist. And even if you are not someone who feels the need for that, keep it to yourself, please. Both for the sake of people around you who are grieving, but also for the sake of, honestly, for your job as well. Because there's all these people celebrating this death that happened, this assassination. And thankfully, a lot of them have rightly been fired for it, because it is horrible. But, you know, furthermore, especially when you consider the fact that the man died in front of his wife and kids. In fact, it was said that when the gunshot went off, his daughter reflexively started to go towards him. His 3-year-old daughter. And if someone hadn't stopped her, she could have been killed. And I'm sure these same people would have been celebrating that too. But if you are seriously in that mindset, you need to get help. Please. Get help for yourself and for the sake of those around you. You should never, ever have the attitude that someone who disagrees with you deserves to die. That is not healthy to have. And especially if you say that you're a Christian, please repent, because you are not a Christian. This is not a Christian attitude to have. repent and put your trust in Jesus, because this is evil, and you cannot believe that you are legitimately saved if you have that kind of attitude about the life of a person with whom you disagree. I don't care how much I dislike a person, how much I disagree with them. I will not celebrate someone's death. It's one thing not being sad necessarily about a death. That's one thing. But when you start celebrating and making jokes about it, particularly when it's like this kind of death that's just over ideas and it's not even about like that they actually physically did anything horrible or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Yes. So anyway, moving on. Dissuasions.
I guess also I just realized I left out a recommendation, so it ties into my dissuasion, so I will start off with that. So the other recommendation I would have had would be to, if you want to farm Colors of Lumina, best place to do it is in Eau Lumiere because of the secret boss there that you can go and face, and you can easily farm Colors of Lumina there. The dissuasion part, though, is to do not kill the boss too early, because the boss does not respawn. I mean, you can always go back and boot up an old save, a previous save, but make sure you definitely do not kill the boss too early until you're actually ready to kill the boss. So just target the clones, and if the boss attacks you, either block all the attacks or parry most of them except for one. And if there is or if you do need to use like the gradient counter, just take the hit, especially if you're like playing the game in the late stage. It's not going to deal that much damage to you anyway, and you can take it. So definitely do not do that. Additionally, do not have any type of abilities equipped where it might accidentally kill the boss upon booting the game. I forgot that I had auto death equipped to CL, and in combination with Death Bomb, when I first went to the boss fight, as soon as the fight started, it was over because the self-destruct killed the boss immediately, so I had to boot up my save immediately to redo everything all over again. So make sure you do not equip anything that could cost you your run. And then one last dissuasion is, do not buy Borderlands 4. That is the game's in a very sad state, and even if it were a little bit better, I just think how things are being handled right now, it's not the best way to handle things. And for $70, you deserve a whole lot better. You deserve a way better than what you're getting for $70. So do not buy this game. Do not support this practice. Wait until it's actually playable, and or there's a good price drop, because you should not be paying this much money and getting this performance in return. There's no excuse for that. But yeah, that's everything I have.
All right, good stuff. All right, my first dissuasion is, do not order a power supply without checking the connections first, especially if you are upgrading from a different power supply, because you want to make sure that you have the same types of connections, that you have all the connections you need to support the parts that you're still going to use. So be extra careful on that front. Secondly, on a more serious note, do not support companies that openly tell you they hate you and want you dead. Which a lot of, there have been a handful of those recently that have made it very clear that if you are a conservative, if you are a Christian, that they think you should die in the same way that just happened recently. And yeah, so don't support these people. If they literally want you dead, don't support them. Because regardless of whether or not they ever act on that, if they hate you, they don't deserve your money. Plain and simple. And I recognize that there are a lot of companies out there that probably hate us, even without them saying it. But when they're openly advocating for you to be killed, then that's something where you just need to stand up for yourself and refuse to support them. Vote with your wallet. I'm serious about that. Anyway, sorry for all the serious stuff, but in light of all the recent events, I'm not going to keep my mouth completely shut on this. I'm not going to get into everything, but there are some things that just have to be said. So,
Agreed.
that's all I got. All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content as of yet. Like I said, I'm working on several different things. I think I'll work on a bunch of videos over the weekend, maybe Saturday, and just have everything recorded so that way I can line things up back to back. But I'll definitely see how that works on that end. Still working on the Spider-Man video again over the weekend. I might also finish season 5 so that way I can start putting together the video, but that probably won't be ready for at least a couple weeks, I would say. But yeah, that's what I've got in the pipeline right now.
All right, good stuff. Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel at the Frozen Gamer 87, which is of course my gaming channel, and hasn't been any new content since I put out the Why I Love PC Gaming series, both the full-length video essay thing that's an hour and a half long, and the that same thing broken up into segments, which still same length overall, but has a lot of shorter videos if you are not the kind of person who wants to sit through an hour and a half all at once. So there is that as options from that front. I do have some other things in the works, some various videos, but probably the next thing that will go up will be my review of that controller that I have been testing out for a while, and hoping to get that up within the next week or so. Honestly, it's kind of hard to say exactly when it'll happen. I need to do the written review first. Thankfully, I can do that separately from the video review, so I will do that first. Hopefully get that out within the next few days. That'll just be something I put up on Amazon, and then I'll use that as my basis for what I want to say about it for the video review. So either way, it's a great controller. I've really been enjoying using it, and it's pretty much been my exclusive PC controller for past couple weeks. So there's that. I'm also planning to put together my next comparison, my first Switch 2 versus Steam Deck OLED comparison for Persona 3 Reload. And the goal is that once I get the recording done, that it will be a much shorter, more condensed video than the previous ones. Mostly for my own sanity, because it just takes way too long to put together. But also just because I think that that'll be more pleasant for viewers to be able to just watch a smaller breakdown, just looking at all those different things. Obviously still without commentary, just video footage and nothing more. So yeah, there's that. Of course, we have the YouTube and Rumble channels for the podcast. On YouTube, that's at the Orange Box Podcast, and Rumble, there's no custom URL, but it also goes live there at the same time every Friday. So Friday, 7 a.m. Central Time is when the podcast goes live, barring any technical issues for the video version. And then for the audio-only version, which goes up on every major audio podcast platform, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pandora, and others I can't think of. That goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, once again, barring any technical issues. And then I do have a YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. Nothing new on there for quite a while, but still around somewhere to 30 to 40 recipes. I really don't remember the exact number. All plenty of good stuff. So that is everything, other than if you want to contact us, you can send us an email to theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on the video of the podcast and let us know what you want. I will say in advance, even though I know that the people who comment these things aren't actually listening, the people who keep commenting, trying to sell us your services on improving our reach and everything, we're not interested. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Regardless of whether or not you actually have the expertise to get us set up that way, if I was really that concerned about improving our reach, I would work on doing that. I'm not going to pay you to do something that when I haven't even put forth the maximum effort to make it happen on our end. We do this each week as an opportunity to talk, to catch up, and just to have an outlet to talk about video games, because especially for me, I don't really have a good outlet otherwise, and so this is a great way to do it every week. So I want it to be as natural a growth as possible. I may do some things in the future to improve the reach, but it's not high priority at this point. It just isn't. I'm just enjoying doing it the way we've been doing it. So regardless of whether it grows further or not, I'm going to keep doing what we're doing and go from there. Anyway, that is everything. Pretty sure. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, pray for Charlie Kirk's family. Please, pray for them. And for all of those who have been impacted or could be impacted both by the things he said and by the message of the gospel that he very clearly stood for. Orange Box Podcast, out.